I was very disappointed in the way Jake Tapper handled Governor Tate Reeves of Mississippi. I mean, this guy made, if you take a listen to what he had to say about infrastructure, he made a mockery out of truth and he made a mockery out of making sense. And Jake Tapper just let it go. Let me give you a chance to listen to this and then we'll take it on the other side.
Let's turn to President Biden's new infrastructure bill. The American Society of Civil Engineers gives your state a D- for your roads and bridges. Almost 1 in 10 bridges in Mississippi are structurally deficient. The number of roads in poor condition is double the national average. A winter storm just knocked out water in your state capital for weeks. This legislation would commit more than $100 billion to fix roads and bridges. Could Mississippi use the help?
Well, there's no doubt that Mississippi could use our fair share of $100 billion. The problem with this particular plan, though, is although the Biden administration is calling it an infrastructure plan, it looks more like a $2 trillion tax hike plan to me. That's going to lead to significant challenges in our economy. It's going to lead to a slowing GDP, and it's going to lead to Americans losing significant numbers of jobs. Infrastructure, Jake, is an area where Republicans and Democrats ought to be able to come together and do something good for the country. But as you mentioned, this plan spends $110 billion on roads and bridges and spends more than that on the combination of Amtrak and public transit. And what's even worse, it spends $100 billion on clean water, which Mississippi could certainly use, but it spends more than that on subsidizing electric vehicles. $155 billion to subsidize electric vehicles. That is a political statement. It's not a statement on trying to improve our infrastructure in America.
At that point, Jake simply went on and asked, how do you pay for it? Now, he made some very distinct statements that made absolutely no sense. First of all, his state is in dire straits. Jackson, Mississippi. These folks stayed without water after the freeze for over a month. Their water system is dilapidated, old, outdated. It needs new coverage. And then he says, he spends $100 billion on clean water. So what is it that you want your folks to drink? Polluted water? And then continuing on that, he goes ahead and he says, he spent a lot of money on electronic vehicles. Isn't charging stations for electronic vehicles, isn't that considered infrastructure? He goes and he said, oh, and this is going to cost jobs in the long run. That is the biggest lie that needs to be mitigated right away. As soon as you start building and creating, these are millions of jobs, retrofitting pipes, lead pipes, going ahead and building new roads and bridges and upgrading airports, installing all these electrical vehicle charging stations. There are lots of jobs getting created. So we have to first nip in the bud that somehow increasing taxes on the wealthy who are not circulating that money to pay for this is going to somehow cause jobs to be lost. We have to hit that up immediately. We also have to hit up the irresponsibility of those that are going against this policy for upgrading our infrastructure. Rural areas don't have good internet. Broadband, very bad broadband. This bill, he complains about the amount of money invested in things that are not infrastructure. In today's economy, broadband is infrastructure. And one of the things that we don't hear these hosts talking about is, well, in the 50s, you talk a whole lot about infrastructure being roads, bridges, and pipes. In the 21st century, you have to talk about broadband. You have to talk about electrical charging stations. Remember, there are millions of thousands of gas, hundreds of thousands of gas stations all over the country. Those have to get retrofitted with being able to charge electric cars as well. Come on. We have to have a media that is engaging, a media that does not allow Republicans to come on TV, lie and misrepresent to people and their own people as well. We have to protect their own people from allowing them to fool them into making the wrong choices. Rural areas, this bill means more to you than anyone else. Let's get busy. we spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead, number one, subscribe to our channel, and number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.